Start this out here in the UK, where there's been renewed rioting in some cities in England and Northern Ireland. The worst outbreaks of violence came in Belfast, Plymouth, and Birmingham. Nearly 400 people have been arrested after a week of violent disorder, which began last week in Southport after the fatal stabbings of three girls and escalated following misinformation about the identity of the perpetrator spread on social media.
Yeah, nice. So they're talking about misinformation, yet they don't want to really tell you any more details. Well, what kind of misinformation? Sure, there were some reports that, the perpetrator was a Muslim immigrant. What did they say? No, he was born here. Yes, that's fine. He was born in England. But, yeah, his parents are immigrants. And maybe it's a little bit overblown, but that's because literally the whole England now and the whole Europe is the powder cake just ready to explode because people are tired of all the criminal activities that are happening. Because those countries, they let in a lot of immigrants in the last 20, 30 years, and there is tons and tons of crime, and people getting tired of it. Sure, this person may not be Muslim, and he actually was born in England, but what they're looking at is that doesn't look native English person. He's a black person, and the parents are immigrants, and that was enough for it to take off. At the end of the day, they're looking at the fact that why did the guy stab three girls? Because what's happening is those type of crimes are very, very, very common now in England. All those immigrants, many of them they call them Asians, but they're not really Asians. They're basically Pakistanis. They commit a lot of crime. In this case, it was immigrants from, I can't remember exactly, but somewhere from the African country. So they were black. But that's what people just getting tired of it. And at the end of the day, you cannot tell them that, the guy is innocent. Well, the guy not innocent. He actually did stab three kids and kill them. So you can actually understand their frustration. That people want their country back. They feel like especially people who have kids. Those immigrants, they come, they take advantage of all the social services and stuff. They drain the system, and well, they can always go back to their home country. Because especially if they take, I don't know, $100,000 to go back to their country, where that $100,000 is a lot of money that it allows them to buy a house and pretty much live carefree for the rest of their life. Those native English people who are actually born in England or who, lived in there for generations, they have nowhere to go. And they see that their country is just falling apart. I actually read just the other day that immigrants from India own more real estate in London than native English people. Like, how crazy is that? And it's understandable, right? Because, India's population is 1.4 billion people. Who's usually moving to other countries and to England and stuff? It's usually people who have a little bit of money and stuff. Because if you have nothing at all, you won't be able to even get your paper processed. So yeah, a lot of people who moving, they actually have a lot of money. And so they come in, they buy real estate and stuff, and drive up the prices. And drive the ordinary English people out of the market. And those people now become forever renters because they just cannot afford to buy real estate anymore. The same thing is happening all over Europe. This is not just unique to England. Look what's happening in Sweden. They called in army to fight Somali gangs. And I remember reading that the capital of Sweden, became like the capital of shooting death in Europe. Like, it's insane. And this we're talking about Sweden. That was, 10, 15 years ago, that was the poster child for the, how social services and stuff can succeed, and the peace and all that stuff. Like, that's not the case anymore. Europe literally changing in front of our eyes.
Last night in Plymouth, at least 3 police officers were injured in what the police described as sustained violence. Bricks and fireworks were thrown at them. 6 arrests were made. In Belfast, riot officers had stones and...
Funny. Belfast. Northern Ireland. The place where they used to fight for independence because they wanted Ireland for Irish. Then you fast forward 20, 30 years, and what happens? Same thing. Left-leaning government, letting in tons of immigrants. So much for Ireland for Irish. The crime is through the roof. I remember not a long time ago, Muslim immigrant killed, I think, a girl or a couple girls. I can't remember now. There were riots there. It's completely crazy what's happening. People want their countries back. The problem is, it's not just the actual immigration. That's not the problem. The problem is they letting in people whose culture is completely different. That is the issue. Especially like Europe. It was very, very open, kind of, short skirts, topless, whatever. And then they letting in people who used to women covering up completely. Those two cultures are not compatible. And really, who they letting in? A lot of actually, it's not just families from other countries. It's just men, young men, military age men. So they come to those countries and they go crazy. There's gang rape, there's murders, anything you think of. I mean, in Sweden, they literally use grenades when they're fighting with each other. Those gangs. But just like Somalia. I mean, they come from Somalia, that's what they used to. They use AK-47 and grenades. Like, it's insane.
Petrol bombs thrown at them close to a supermarket which was set alight at the weekend. As the latest disorder unfolded, the Prime Minister criticised the owner of X, Elon Musk, who posted that civil war is inevitable in the UK.
Why criticize him? This is one of the smartest person. You don't become the richest person in the world by being stupid. Okay, let me tell you that. And the guy knows it. Like, what do you think gonna happen when you have two opposite group? This is like, you have civil wars in countries where people born in the same country. Like, let's take Yemen, for example. You have Muslims, they're all Muslims, they're born in the same country. They simply believe little bit something different. And they go to war with each other. That's what civil war is. When you have little difference of opinion. Here, you literally imported people who completely different than you, 180 degrees. You literally cannot get any more different than that. So what do you think is going to happen when you put those two groups of people in the same city? Yeah, civil war will happen. Like, it's literally inevitable. So don't hate the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger, as the saying goes. Like, literally, you guys did it yourselves. What do you think was gonna happen? That the locals just gonna roll over and just accept it all?
Our reporter Aruna Iyengar has the latest.
Two opposing protests.
Yeah, And look who's, pro-immigration. Somebody with blue hair. It's the same people.
In Plymouth started out peacefully before vocal clashes between the anti-racism and anti-immigration.
Anti-racism? What's racism? Racism means, do you think that other race is less, that you basically superior to them? But that's not the case here. Those people simply don't want those immigrants in their country. They see them that they, whatever reason, it doesn't even matter what the reason is. Just in their case, yes, they see that those immigrants commit a lot more crime, rapes, murder, all those gangs running around. They don't want them in their country. That's not racism. But it doesn't even matter what the reason is. They simply don't want them in their country, okay? They want their own country for themselves. What's wrong with that? It's funny how people talk about it, that it's such a big deal, but yet most of the countries in the world act like that. I know, for example, Indonesia. Take Indonesia, for example. It's not as developed as UK or West or wherever. Do you know that it's pretty much impossible for foreigner to get Indonesian citizenship? Even if you get married to an Indonesian person, you don't get Indonesian citizenship. Because they protect it. Because Indonesian citizenship only for Indonesians. If you're not Indonesian, you cannot buy land. There's lots of things you cannot do. You can literally work in Indonesia. You can own a business. You can employ 3,000 people. And how do I know it? Because I actually know a person who told me about all that. So you can own a business in Indonesia, employ 3,000 people for 20 years, and you will not get Indonesian citizenship. And yet, when a white person in England screams that they don't want immigrants here, somehow it's a racism. Well, then what would you call what Indonesia doing? It's normal. It's completely normal. Just over the years, we've been told to believe that somehow it's bad, that's racism. It's not. It's a natural thing. People want to protect their country.
Groups. Police in riot gear were deployed to keep the groups apart, and several officers suffered injuries as violence later broke out.
It was kind of terrifying. Hundreds of people moved up the Ho Park onto the kind of the promenade and the memorial area. 10 minutes after that, there was a strong police presence kind of dissipating them after they'd set fires and things. And then there was a huge group of rioters outside our front door, kind of smashing things, organizing themselves for further mischief. And then
It's funny. They don't tell you exactly what happened. It's not like this riot actually happened in response to the immigrant guy stabbing 3 girls. No, what happened is the guy stabbed 3 and killed 3 girls. They were young girls, like 6, 8 years old. So there was a peaceful demonstration by English people who were simply screaming and had signs that they're tired of this happening there. So what happened in response? Muslims organized. They had weapons. They were actually attacking people. So this is actually in response to that. But you're not going to get it on the news. No. They're making it sound like this is just in response to that guy stabbing and this is it. That's it. No, it's not that simple. But even if it was, at the end of the day, the guy did kill 3 kids. So please don't try to play this game that he's a victim somehow.
10 minutes after that, it completely moved back down towards the town centre area.
There was also unrest in South Belfast. Last night, riot teams were deployed to Sandy Row as a petrol bomb and stones were thrown at police.
Yes, because people want their countries back, seriously. In England, I remember reading in some small town, just the gang of immigrants murdered a 16-year-old white boy. And it barely made the news. Why? Because he's white. And they're black immigrants. So you have to protect them. You have to be sensitive. Because you don't want this to happen. Well, what the heck is that? The law's supposed to apply to everyone. When you had riots during George Floyd time, a few years back, everyone was calling them peaceful, even though exactly the same thing was happening. But here, people fighting, protesting for their own country, and they're getting arrested, and it's all over the news, and the Prime Minister calls them terrorists and says they're going to go to their houses and they're going to find them and going to arrest them. Like, it's insanity. George Floyd was a criminal. When he was arrested, he was on drugs. He swallowed fatal dose of drugs and he died from that. Nothing to do absolutely with them holding him down. The guy literally once held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach while he was robbing her. And they erected the statues for him, made him some kind of hero. And then when those kind of protests broke out, they were calling them peaceful protests. Like, it's insane. Here, people are actually protesting because 3 young girls were killed. If you ask me, that's good enough reason to protest. And you gonna call them terrorists? Arrest them? People are getting tired. So yes, when Elon Musk says that there's going to be a civil war, yeah, he's right. There will be a civil war. Because you cannot have completely different point of view, people living literally across the street from each other. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this.